everyone, and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rant, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show, where I try to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. Wearing the Seahawks jersey for good reason. Whew, what a game. I predicted 31-17 way off, should have factored in the cold weather. I just, for some reason, thought the Seahawks would, with all the new technology and everything they had, I didn't think the cold weather would be such a factor. It was pretty cold when they played Denver in New York in the Super Bowl, and they just killed them, but this was much colder, third coldest game in playoff history, and yeah, you could tell Russell Wilson did not like the cold. And talk about reverse feelings for all you Seahawk fans that remember when Wilson threw that pick. We thought for sure we had the Super Bowl last year, and then that pick, and it was over, and that feeling was terrible. Can't even describe it. And yet, yesterday, I totally understand how the Vikings feel, and but by the same point, I think we deserve it. There were some bad calls right at the end there. That pass interference call on Cam Chancellor was totally bogus. That kept him going closer to the goal. And, it is what it is. Now Seahawks move on to play Carolina. I'll have to think about that prediction. This is Monday. Not going to make a prediction yet. I'm going to think about it. I'm trying not to go off the cuff. I'm very enthusiastic about the Seahawks' chance to make the Super Bowl again. And, I just want to be careful. I want to think about this because Carolina has a great defense. They're playing at home. Seattle has the number one defense in many categories, but they're playing great on the road. Almost beat Carolina at home. Carolina just came through right at the very end and won the game. And so, yeah, exciting weekend. Looking forward to next weekend. Shout out, I just had a new follower on YouTube. I'm very appreciative of that. I'm getting up there slowly but surely. Don't be afraid to subscribe. It's real easy. Just hit the subscribe button while you're watching one of the videos. Follow a couple of easy instructions and you're on. And all that does is it sends you an email telling you when I have a video. Whether you want to watch it or not, that's your business, but at least you have that message. It tells you, like, wow. Anyway. So, today I am going to talk a little bit about Petite Sirah because it's a very interesting varietal in a lot of different ways. On this show I do a lot of, I've done Sagrantino, I've done some very interesting, weird sort of varietals on this episode, on certain episodes. But this is an interesting varietal because it never has really taken off. It's never really gotten a solid foothold in the wine category of top sales. I mean, Cab, of course, is king in the reds, and Chardonnay in the whites, and then you have Sauvignon Blancs, you have Merlot. I mean, I sell more Merlot than I do Petite Sirah. But yeah, now here's the funny part. When I stack Petite Sirah on the floor, what happens is it sells rapidly. I mean, people just get excited about it. It's almost as if nobody comes to the store thinking Petite Sirah. And I think the part of the problem is the Syrah element in it. If you notice, it's spelled different. Syrah, the straight up Syrah, is S-Y-R-A-H. And this one is S-I-R-A-H. It is actually related to Syrah. Another name for Petite Sirah is Durif, D-U-R-I-F. And I think a lot of people, I hope nobody comes out with the name Durif. I've heard rumblings that they might come out with Durif as a name for Petite Sirah. And, I just think that makes it more confusing. It's like one winery here in Washington decided to name their Malbec Co. And I understand it's called Co in France, but in the U.S. it's called Malbec. And I think what happens there is you just create this mystery or mysteriousness about wine that doesn't belong there, because wine is not mysterious. But yes, there are many names for different types of grape. Durif is a name for Petite Sirah. It is it's a marriage of Syrah and Plowerson, which is a very obscure grape, and that created Petite Sirah. And the dude that did that cross-pollination was Durif. That was his name. There's only like 10,000 acres planted of Petite Sirah in the world. That's not very many. And most of those are in the United States. So, but again, I just have to mention once again before we get started tasting some of these wines, is that people are very interested in Petite Sirah. It just is not getting traction in wine sales on a consistent basis. I think probably most of you remember, if you're younger you won't remember, but Stag's Leap Petite Sirah used to be huge. I mean, everybody talked about Stag's Leap Petite Sirah. It's pricey, so I understand why a lot of people don't buy it, but there's many other good Petite Sirahs on the market. They're very good wines. They're not necessarily ageable wines. They're usually made to drink within the first 3 to 4 years, and yeah, they're very high in tannins. So they definitely are food wines, but for those of you that are, feeling a little bit like you need some punishment on your palate, they're a great bottle of wine to have by itself. I don't always promote wine as a cocktail drink, like by itself, but I also want to encourage all you that are in your 20s and your 30s. It is a good way to just kind of kick back and spend some time with your friends with a good bottle of wine. Let's get started. The first wine we're going to do is 2013 Oak Grove Petite Sirah. California's the appellation, meaning they can source the grapes from just about anywhere. This rolls in at $8. Now, Oak Grove, to me, is just one of those underrated, appreciated brands. It's inexpensive. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it. I know a lot of you are, of course, but a lot of you aren't. And I'm just really excited about the Oak Grove label. I think they do some really quality wines for next to nothing. We think about Jacob's Creek, we think about Lindemans from Australia, and they're inexpensive. The quality on these wines, at least in the past, I haven't tasted this current vintage of Petite Sirah, but in the past have always been stellar. And I think head and shoulders above Lindemans or Jacob's Creek. Let's see what we get on the nose. So I get that nice blueberry raspberry. It reminds me of blueberry raspberry jam. Just a hint of tobacco. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It doesn't have a lot going on. There's not a huge amount of complexity on the nose, but it is very aromatic as far as blueberry and raspberry go. Let's see what we get on the palate. Nice and bright, definitely bright on the palate, and the fruit comes through very nicely. It's got good balance. A lot of raspberry, little underlying blueberry for sure, and it's almost like a bright raspberry element coming through. What I like about this wine is it's not boring because of that brightness, and right at the backside I get a little bit of just a hit, tiny hit of licorice and tobacco that kind of linger on the backside with the blueberry. So you get this raspberry front, kind of flows across the palate, a little bit of licorice, a little bit of tobacco, and then blueberries finishes off. I'm still tasting it, and we're talking $8, okay? That's, that's a prayer for a wine like this. Like I said, not super exciting, but it's good. It has that delicious factor. I don't taste any makeup, and makeup meaning we use the term makeup sometimes in the wine world. What we're talking about is after you taste enough wines, you can tell if they've done a lot of manipulation to the wine. This might have oak chips, I don't know. Sometimes you can tell if they use oak powder. I tasted a wine recently that I know they used Mega Purple, and Mega Purple is a concentrate they put in wine to give it a blacker, inkier color. And they do that because the consumer, you and I, tend to gravitate towards darker wines. And it's just the way it is. My son asked me about that. He says, "Is that right?" And I go, "Yeah, actually people like it." And actually proof of that fact is that we were in a room full of people. We poured this wine, and one of the guys who hardly ever drinks wine was just so impressed at the color of that wine. So these marketers, you know, they know what they're doing. These winemakers know what they're doing. If they're going to sell the wine, make it darker, put some of that mega purple in it, you could taste it in the wine. So that's what I mean by makeup. It's like they did things to the wine to make it what it is. This might have a little bit of it, but it certainly isn't a prominent part of it. And I like this wine for $8. I'm gonna go C plus B minus. I think it's really good. I think there's nothing funky about it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's well built, well made, good food wine, but also a wine that you could drink all by itself. Let's move on. Iconic Petite Sirah producer Bogle Vineyards Petite Sirah 2013. Yes, I can barely read that. Bogle, I think, probably is the most successful Petite Sirah out there, and believe it or not, they came out with another label called Essential Red. This rolls in at $13. Essential Red that has, as far as I know, and I don't have any solid facts, but I've heard through the industry that Essential Red, their blend, has overtaken Petite Sirah, which used to be their go-to varietal. Everybody bought Bogle Petite Sirah. Of course, we all know blends are huge now. Now the color on this is amazing. It's very, very dark in color, kind of a reddish black I'm getting on this. So that's kind of cool. Again, I didn't look at the Oak Grove as closely. Almost like a rose petal color to this. So this is darker fruit on the nose, very interesting. A little deeper on the nose. Definitely like really ripe blueberries. A little bit of currant coming through on this one, which I find intriguing. Definitely kind of it reminds me a little bit of like old boards and tobacco. Gotta quit leaning forward. And I'm getting a little bit of like violets on it, which is, I like it. Let's see what we get on the palate. Now, tasting this wine, I can understand why Bogle took this brand to the, why so many people drank Bogle Petite Sirah. Man, I could not spit that out. Sorry about that, guys. Just not motor mouth today at all. Very deep. I mean, I get a very, very richness on this, but it's not fruity. I don't know how else to explain it. There's no fruit bomb to this. There's a little bit of a nice core of acidity that comes through. A lot of blueberries, big time blueberries coming through on this with a little bit of currant undertows to it. And just nice concentration. It hits your palate, then gets a little bit richer on the mid palate, and then kind of steadily goes in. Nice flow across the palate. There's a little spice element coming through on the backside. Tannins really, really grip on the end. But once again, I'm saying this has got good tannins. It has good tannins to it. Certainly would be great with a burger, pizza, that sort of thing. It's $13. I mean, that's, you know, what can we say? Hardly anything for the quality of wine in that bottle. And I like the spiciness. I get this like white pepper, blueberry, currant thing on the backside that's kind of hanging there with just a little bit of tobacco coming through. That's for $13. What I'm saying is this is a pretty serious wine for $13. I am going to go straight up B on this. I think it's really good. B is for Bogle. But yeah, I think it's a great wine. I think B is a great grade for that for $13. Let's move on. McManus Family Vineyards, Petite Sirah, California. This also says California. Had to check. This rolls in at, this is 2014. This rolls in at $12. McManus is what I would call a wine you see in a lot of grocery stores. I'm very interested in their wines. Their Pinot Noir is just stupid to me. It definitely has to have Syrah in it. I don't know if they would ever admit that, but it definitely has Syrah. So big for a Pinot Noir. A lot of people like it. I use it as an introductory wine to Pinot. Then they can go backwards from there. Certainly, I don't think it truly. I just don't think it represents the varietal that much. But some people just want to try it, and I know what they drink normally. The color on this is crazy, just like the Bogle. Actually, a little even darker, a little on the black side. Definitely licorice and blueberries. Licorice and blueberries. Licorice and blueberries. With just a tiny backdrop of currants. And violets. I'm getting violets on this. It's interesting. Those two wines both showed a violet characteristic on the nose, which I like. When you're practicing smelling wine, I encourage practicing it. Whether you do it, you probably don't want to start in front of people. I mean, that might be a little bit embarrassing for you, unless you're outgoing and you don't mind doing that in front of people. Get a little practice group, get 3 of you together and just smell it, see what people come up with. There's no right or wrong answer. It has to do with your association with certain aromatics. Maybe I love smelling wine with people that don't have preconceived ideas about what should be in a varietal. There are actually elements to certain wines that are very consistent. Cab, for instance, you'll almost invariably get currants. And you may think, well, they're making that up. It is definitely a characteristic of Cab. Cherries and currants are big-time Cab aromas. So when somebody like me gets into a Cab, that's one of the things we're looking for. A lot of times you'll get, I like to say mint. Some people like to say pencil lead, but you get that minty characteristic sometimes. If they're near eucalyptus groves, you'll get that eucalyptus characteristic in that wine. But those are the things we look for in Cabs. Very common aromatic of Petite Sirah is blueberry. And all of these wines show blueberry. I got a lot of violets on 2 of them, so I'm thinking that might be a common denominator also in Petite Sirah. But it's fun to get with somebody who really doesn't have that background, because they're looking for other things, and you find certain aromatics in a wine it's really cool. I mean, it's really fun to listen to it. Like my son, I love tasting wine with him because he is a chef, so he gets a lot of those herbal spice components that I may not get. A lot of times he gets some of the condiments that come through on wine, which I don't get. But once he says those, I start searching for those. I don't always agree with what people say, but sometimes I get it, and I see where they're coming from, and I love that. I love that. We never should be closed-minded when we're smelling wine. Have fun. Find 3 people you're real comfortable with, grab a bottle, pour it. Of course you're going to drink it, right? But smell it and see what you get. It enhances your wine experience. And you don't have to be pretentious. There's no correct way to describe a wine. It's what you smell, and just say it. Don't be afraid to say it. And leave people out of your group that are snobs, or they have that kind of pretentious. You don't want that around you. You want people that are willing to have fun, but also willing to try to get those senses. You don't want somebody that's going to make fun of it, obviously. Because, like with anything that we smell, have you ever walked in a house and they're cooking a prime rib and you're just like, wow, what's that? Oh, you start getting hungry, right? Those smells of the seasoning of the prime rib and its cooking just gets you going. And without that smell, if you didn't smell that, your appetite, your anticipation wouldn't be there. It's true with wine also. There you go. So we got those elements on this, and I'm getting a little bit of that kind of chocolate on this, which is very interesting. Sometimes it's good to just stop and re-smell it quickly. I'm getting like a bittersweet chocolate, like dark chocolate on this. Okay, let's see what we get on the palate. Wow. Good tannins. I was having trouble. There's a lot out. I'm curious what the alcohol level is on this. I'm not going to look. It's right there and I cannot see it. I can taste alcohol on it. Let's just put it that way. It's big on the palate. But this is a very interesting wine. Now, we had those other elements in the Bogle and the Oak Grove that were interesting. This is massive on the palate. Massive. But massive chocolate. I mean, if I wanted you to understand what chocolate was on a wine, this is the epitome of chocolate. There's only one other wine in recent memory that I've tasted that has this much chocolate on it. This is chocolate all day. It's like liquefied chocolate with just a little bit of currants underneath. I don't get any blueberry on this at all. Maybe a little right at the end, but not really. Mostly currants. Mostly currants on the finish, chocolate front to back, and then it tightens up. You get that kind of grippiness that's there. Interesting wine. And once again, good, fresh acid front to back. It's not an acid bomb by any stretch, but it's fresh. You get that little lift, you know. And then there's those flowers. I definitely get violets right on the finish. Kind of like a violet, just a kind of like a potpourri of red flowers. This screams for lasagna, beef, burgers. If you're a vegetarian, portobello mushrooms would be a good way to go. It is a massive wine. I'm not sure where to go with this one. I like it. There's something about it that seems a little bit off to me. I shouldn't say that. Getting that much chocolate out of Petite Sirah is really kind of weird. For $12, you guys are gonna love this wine. I'm gonna go B. I'm gonna hedge towards B plus because I like the tannic structure. I like the freshness. I like the lift of the acid on this one. The chocolate tones are good. They're not out of balance. It doesn't go sweet, gooky sweet. I like the way it flows across the palate. I'm gonna go B plus. $12. That's a good buy. Definitely a solid buy. And then that dark chocolate kind of lingers on the backside. With maybe some like fresh blueberries, just a little bit, but not so much. Anyway, see how badly I want to get blueberry? There's no blueberry. Okay. There's something there though. It might be blueberry. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. A little rinse here. Hey, just a quick comment. Could you describe how you felt when Minnesota Vikings were on the 27-yard line, getting ready to kick the ball, with only like 23, 24 seconds left in the game? How were you feeling? I was swearing at Bevels on the elevator, going up to get some wine, because I was so angry at his play calling on the last drive of the Seahawks. I was angry. I was livid, because I felt like he wasn't creative, which we were talking about Bevels. This guy, sometimes he's super creative and interesting the way he calls plays. Other times he's just boring as hell. Sorry about that. He just doesn't do it for me a majority of the time. And he did 2 run plays right up the middle, forced him to pass on 3rd and 8, or 3rd and 6, or I think it was 3rd and 8. And, guess what happened? They didn't make it. And all they had to do was get 2 first downs, and the game was over. Enough of that. 2012, Fabiano Vineyards, Russian River Valley. So you got a specific appellation here. Russian River Valley, Petite Sirah. This rolls in at $22. So now we're just going to get one of the bigger guns here. Fabiano. See if we can get my camera to focus. I'm going to have trouble with this focusing on this. I think I might have to go shopping for another camera here pretty soon. Alright. Let's see what we get on the nose. This is meatier. It reminds me of beef a little bit, like raw beef. This is almost like raw meat and somebody squirted curtain juice all over the raw meat. That's what I'm getting on this. A lot more tobacco. I get that kind of wood character like I got off the McManus. Like that lumber, that color is great again on this, and that's very typical Petite Sirah. You'll get that deep, dark color. A lot of licorice, and I'm getting like black raspberry. And I'm getting a little bit of an interesting like Worcestershire sauce coming through on the back side of this. Definitely there. Yeah, let's see what we get on the palate. This is definitely, I don't often like to say this, I mean the McManus was a great Petite Sirah, absolutely that chocolate, but this has a big mid-palate, nice and smooth. It's much more polished but very interesting. It has that tannic grip on the backside. You get that kind of grippiness like sandpaper a little bit on the backside, but this is definitely more polished, more seamless than any of these. Kind of interesting to see that. Interesting hit of currants and blueberries right up front. I did get blueberries. No blueberries on the McManus. Blueberries on this one right up front with the chocolate, which is very interesting. I'm getting so much chocolate out of these Petite Sirahs. I find that quite intriguing. I guess I never really focused on that particular aspect. And right on the backside, those purple flowers, the violets. I know I said red flowers. There are red flowers in McManus, but this also has... They were purple and red. This is definitely on the purple side. Purple flowers, violets, other types of purple flowers are coming through in just a boatload of them. I'm going to go to work with purple teeth. Definitely red and black raspberry elements. What I like about this wine, and this is really cool, is there's so much going on the palate. It just kind of goes all over the place as far as flavors. It's hard for my mind to grasp. I mean, I'm getting a hit of this there, and a hit of this there, and a hit of this there. But at the same time, it's polished and flowing, but all these different levels are in there. It's kind of like watching a really good football team that just kind of flows across, but there's so many things going on behind the scenes, the play calling, the moves, the cuts, all these things that the guys do, but the team just goes right down the field. But there's a lot going on. That's what this one is. It goes right across the palate, just whew. But there's so much going on, so many levels of flavors, so many levels of this and that, and then that tannic grip on the backside. Definitely a food wine. It has that kind of lift like the other ones, that little bit of acid that comes through that lifts the flavors, especially on the finish. And I'm still tasting this. I get the underripe blueberries, I get raspberry, I get the purple flowers coming through all together. I love it. I love it. So, you know, based on the price, I mean, it's a little bit more than McManus. I gave McManus a BB+. I'm definitely going to go solid B+, hedging towards A- on the Fabiano. I think for $22, it's definitely, it's way cheaper than the Stag's Leap. And I think you're getting a really good quality Petite Sirah. But let me warn you on Fabiano, it is vintage sensitive. I've tasted some, which I like in a wine. I don't like wines that kind of dial everything in so every vintage tastes the same. I've had some vintages on this that were not that exciting. They've never been bad, but this 2012 is fantastic. You might want to, okay. Don't give up on Petite Sirah. It's a great varietal, great food wine, great wine that you can just sit around with friends and enjoy. I'd like to see it take off a little bit more. I'm not going to go on any campaigns that way, but don't forget about Petite Sirah. Remember, it's out there. It's a great wine. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.